Hey fellas, this is Vince Miller. So excited that you're joining us again today. We are in a series on how to build brotherhood. We're looking at male spiritual relationships. If you did not catch the video from last time, you need to, because this is a three-part series. Last time we looked at some of the issues and obstacles that we face when it comes to building male spiritual relationships, which are very complicated for us men for some reason. Today, in part two, we're looking at, well, some preliminary matters, some things that you and I have to own up to before we can ever really engage in healthy relationship with other men. Before we dig in today, though, I want to encourage you to go to the website. As always, beresolute.org is the website. We got all kinds of great resources there. So if you're looking for prayer, I'll pray for you. If you're looking for a men's daily devo, I got that. I write that every day. Short, sweet, to the point, just for guys like you and me. Also, if you want to support the ministry, you can do this in a variety of ways. One of the ways you can do that is by going all in, by purchasing one of these sweet all-in hats. We have a huge variety, so go to the store, check it out. Links are below if you want to check that out. And by the way, I believe it makes a huge statement to the world when we say we're going all in for Him who went all in for you and me. So share that message with others, right? Go all in for Jesus Christ. Now, before we dig in, as always, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button below and hit it now, because I'm going to tell you this three-part series, you're not going to want to miss it. But let's dig into the topic. Today we're looking at how to build male spiritual relationships, which last time we said are very complicated for us dudes. But today we want to look at a couple of preliminary matters that I think are critical before we ever begin. And here's the first point. Fellas, if we're ever going to build spiritual relationships with other men, then you, number one, are going to have to take initiative. You're going to have to take initiative. You're going to have to do something about it, because I can't do anything about this one for you. And your mama can't plan it for you. And your wife, even though she wants to, can't plan it for you. You are going to have to take a step on this one. You're going to have to take some initiative. Here's a little verse for you. It's from Galatians chapter 6, beginning in verse 4. And I want to read 4 and 5. But essentially what Paul is doing is he's addressing the fact that we have a responsibility to bear each other's burdens as brothers, right? But he gets down in verse 4, and here's what he says. He says, "But let each one test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone, and not in his neighbor, not in his brother," right? "For each will have to bear his own load." For each will have to bear his own load. I think this is Paul kind of saying, look, it's time to kind of man up on these spiritual issues, right? It's time to bear your own load. And fellas, you need to take initiative on this. If you've never taken initiative on this in your entire life, well, it's time to move from the spiritual bench to the game. It's time to move from the pew to partnership with other men. It's time to reach out to somebody and take the initiative that you haven't taken. Because fellas, you need this more than ever. I know too many men wait to build brotherhood in their life until it's too late. And then they say, after they hit a major catastrophe in their life, because for men, most of the time, pain is the greatest teacher, unfortunately. And we go through a pain, like maybe an addiction, maybe it's a financial challenge, maybe it's a marital challenge, and then we finally discover that we need some buddies in our life, some men, some partners, some friends, some spiritual male relationships that actually challenge us, and then we look back on all that and say, why did we wait so long? Fellas, be a little proactive and less reactive with this one. Take some initiative, is what Paul is saying. Bear your own load and own up to it, and do that today. And taking initiative is really simple. It's about just scheduling a meeting with another dude and trying it out, right? I'm going to show you how to do that in the next video, so just hang on. There'll be more to come. Now, the second thing I think we really need to do is not only first take initiative, but number two, we need to think shoulder to shoulder more than face to face. Think shoulder to shoulder more than face to face. You know, I think this is one of those awkward things for most men is What does it look like to actually have a spiritual conversation? What are we supposed to talk about? Am I supposed to bring my Bible to the meeting? What are we supposed to pray about? What am I supposed to share? And it gets kind of scary. But I got to tell you, if you can start by building male spiritual relationships in just simple brotherhood, by thinking shoulder to shoulder with another guy, right, rather than face-to-face meetup, it may take some of the tension out of it. I'm going to give you another verse. It's actually from Ecclesiastes chapter 4. So way back in the Old Testament, Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9, it reads this: "Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up." I mean, those are a couple of great verses for you there. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil. Now, you think about it for a second. What do men do when they're toiling, right? They're doing something together. They're doing something shoulder to shoulder. They're engaged in an activity. Just think of stuff like this. Think golf, games, and guns. The 3 Gs, right? Golf, games, and guns. Think about every one of those activities. They're all meaningful, right? I mean, think about how many deals, business deals, have been struck up at one of these events: playing golf, shooting guns, or attending a sporting event or a game. I mean, it's amazing really when you think about it, because you can actually have real meaningful conversations during this time. I mean, all we're talking about in this moment is really a spiritual deal, not a business deal, right? And not to reduce it to some sort of commodity exchange. But fellas, when we engage in male spiritual relationships, great things happen. But begin by thinking shoulder to shoulder. It gives you a purpose for the event. It gives you something to talk about that's mutual. And by the way, guys like these kinds of things. When we get tactile with our hands, doing something, competing something, partnering with somebody else in an activity, it's much easier for us to break down the relational obstacles that every one of us, fellas, every one of us have. And by the way, I got to tell you, I've had some of the most meaningful spiritual conversations with other men swinging sticks on a golf course. It can be amazing, because I got to tell you, if you can talk about business there, you can even talk about God. And you will learn things about God that you never discovered simply by asking great questions. So fellas, these are a couple of preliminary matters that I hope you'll embrace. Number one, take initiative, right? Because it's your responsibility, not mine. And number two, think shoulder to shoulder first before you ever move face to face. It's just a little easier to have conversations that way when you're doing things with other men. Well, fellas, don't miss next time. Please do not miss the next video in this series, because I got to tell you, I'm going to actually step you through what happens in the context of a relationship with another man in the middle of male spiritual relationships, right? So let's uncomplicate them. Next time, hit the subscribe button below to get that video, and I'll see you right back here again. Until then, be, live, and act resolute.